Samira is the latest addition to the League of Legends roster. Sitting at a near 70% ban rate, Samira has been absolutely terrorizing all levels of play. She was nerfed day one of her release, and even with those hard-hitting nerfs, she is still the most banned champion in the game. People hate this champion so much that they go as far as speedrunning her ban phase. What makes this champion so unbelievably oppressive, and what makes her kit so broken? And should you ever be lucky enough to find yourself being able to pick Samira and getting her through the ban phase, how should you abuse this champion to the best of her ability? This is how to play like a challenger. Samira is classified as a marksman, and marksmen are generally supposed to be playing in the backline, staying alive, staying safe, and playing with their range. This is especially true when it comes to team fights. However, Samira is mainly played on the front lines like an assassin or a bruiser. She can have the burst of an assassin while having the sustain of a tanky bruiser. Samira is so strong that she can even be played like other bully AD carries in mid and top such as Lucian. When it comes to champion balance, if a champion can bring something completely new to a role, in this case a frontline ADC, that new mechanic will often either be completely broken or completely useless. In this case, it is completely fucking broken. The most overpowered part of Samira is undoubtedly her ultimate, Inferno Trigger. It essentially is a mobile AD version of Katarina's ultimate on steroids. It has a 500% AD ratio and it is affected by crit chance. On top of this, Inferno Trigger has no cooldown at all. This means that Samira players will easily be able to use her ultimate 2 or even 3 times in a single team fight. This ability is 100% effective with lifesteal, so you become a mini Swain in the process of using this ability as well. Since this ability has no cooldown, you can even use it for wave clear if you find it in a situation that you can. In order to actually activate this ability, you have to have 6 stacks of your passive. You receive 1 stack every time you damage an enemy champ in a different way than the previous attack. You essentially just have to weave auto attacks between every ability to be able to stack it up very quickly. Samira could even get her ultimate cancelled and not even worry about it too much because she can just start stacking immediately again. Once Samira gets fed and ahead, there's almost nothing you can do against her because her ultimate will always be available and there's always a constant threat when facing her. Samira's damage is so strong that she's able to play like an assassin in the mid to late game. Instead of being scared and having to be babysit by her support all the time, Samira can fend for herself. While her ultimate is the main source of frustration that Samira has, it is not the only reason that this champion is so broken. Her ultimate can be stopped with hard CC just like Katarina's. However, unlike Katarina, Samira has a 360-degree Yasuo wind wall known as her W ability. This means that certain champions with projectile CC will be useless to stop her from ulting. When Samira gets picked up in champion select, it tells the other team that they can't pick certain champions. Extremely viable and meta AD carries such as Ashe and Xayah are rendered completely useless by this single ability. This forces players to pick champions with non-projectile based CC, usually forcing them into off-meta picks and to play from a disadvantage in champ select. When it comes to effective forms of crowd control, most of it in the current meta is projectile based. In the early game, most of the time Samira is going to be following up on plays with her support or jungler. As with most AD carries, the beginning of each fight is going to be dictated by your support. Samira synergizes best with champions that have a lot of CC. This is so that she's able to safely get her stacks in order to be able to deal out her combo. Samira's passive also extends CC and helps with gap closing. Any champion that is not in range of her auto attacks, if they get crowd controlled, her passive allows her to get into range. She needs to have enough HP before going in order to hit her 6 stacks and stay alive long enough to be able to use her ultimate to the full duration of it. Now, since Samira is an AD carry, she still rotates like an AD carry. Once bot lane tower falls, you want to go mid lane and play her around there. Even though Samira has enough damage to be able to solo lane, it is still not an advisable thing to do. Her passive synergizes extremely well with a support in tow, and her ultimate is really designed for a multi-man team fight. While fed Samira can easily destroy her enemy AD carry, that is not always going to be the case if she's coming up against a mid or top laner. The only instance in which Samira would be able to solo lane as an AD carry is if she was insanely fed and ahead. If you decide to place Samira as a top or mid laner, that will give you a far better chance at being successful in a solo lane. Because you likely won't be under-leveled compared to the other solo laners, it'll be much easier to be able to survive and even beat 1v1s. While Samira inevitably has to dash into the middle of a team fight to be able to get a good ultimate off, she still has to play somewhat safe in order to get her stacks off. Once you're sitting on your ultimate, that's when you're looking and waiting to go in. The difference between good Samira players and bad Samira players is that bad Samira players often tend to just go in whenever their ultimate is up. While the ultimate doesn't necessarily have a cooldown, going in whenever you have it up is not necessarily the best decision. Since you're basically the attack damage version of a Katarina, you have to start thinking like a Katarina. Katarina players don't necessarily go in every time their ultimate is up. Wait out the crowd control, wait out the burst. Identify which champions on the enemy team can pose a serious threat to stopping you from doing the main part of your damage. Once that champion has been forced to burn their abilities or are distracted by the fight, then you can go in. As a general rule of thumb, you still play front to back like a normal AD carry. The biggest difference is that you're waiting for the perfect opportunity to be able to go in and blow up the rest of the team. Generally speaking, you're waiting for your team to be able to shred the enemy team down low enough so that you can come in with your ultimate. To make full use of Samira, you play her in team fights like ranged Pike or ranged Katarina. Poke with your Q and auto attacks and wait for the right time to come in. Samira is a broken champion, but that doesn't mean you don't need good positioning. Her W and her E give her a higher level of security than most other champions. But unless you're Giga fed, you're still going to be playing around your team. Here's a good basic combo that gets Samira to her ultimate immediately during a fight. Auto attack, Q, auto attack, E, auto attack, W, and then ultimate. During a team fight, you can also try to get some stacks ramping up before you engage and do your full combo. If you get an auto attack and a Q followed with another auto, you will start from C instead of E. If you're starting from C, you can just press all three of your abilities and start the ultimate immediately afterwards. For your build, start D-Blade with one pot, then start building Essence Reaver immediately. Samira scales incredibly well with both AD and crit chance. The CDR is also extremely helpful for Samira to get through her passive. For boots, you can build either into Berserker Greaves or Ninja Tabbies and Merc Treads, depending on the enemy composition. After that, follow it up with Infinity Edge, then Death Stance for survivability and sustain in team fights. Since you're essentially a caster, you don't need attack speed like other AD carries do. If you don't need resistances, you can opt into Bloodthirster instead. Lifesteal is extremely strong on Samira since all of her abilities are 100% effective with lifesteal. After that, go into Phantom Dancer for the move speed, crit, and shield. And for your last item, you will have a choice. Mortal Reminder for raw damage, GA for survivability, Maw of Mount Mortis or Edge of Night against AP comps, or even Spirit Visage if you need even more survivability. For your runes, you should always go Conqueror. Since her abilities are up so often, she can very easily build up stacks and be fully charged when her ultimate becomes available. This also guarantees that the additional healing that Conqueror provides will make it even harder to kill in Samira's ultimate form. With Conqueror, take Triumph for more sustain in team fights, Legend Bloodline, and Coup de Grace for more damage. For your secondary tree, you can go either Domination with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter for even more sustain, or you can go into the sorcery tree, taking Nimbus Cloak and Gathering Storm like a more traditional AD carry. For your abilities, start with Q as it is your most important ability to get style stacks and harass the enemies, then E at level 2 for an all-in potential, and then W at level 3. Max Q, E, and W. All in all, Samira, despite her weaknesses, is still an absolutely disgusting champion in the game right now. She combines the most cancerous aspects of some of the most hated champions in the game, such as Yasuo and Katarina. Aside from also being a ranged AD carry, Samira takes some of the most frustrating mechanics in the game and throws it all into one package. Samira is one of those champions that players will ask to delete for 200 years to come. This champion will undoubtedly continue to receive nerfs. And even after she gets those nerfs, she will probably still be extremely strong and cancerous to play against. So if you are lucky enough to get Samira through the ban phase, and have the fortune of being able to pick her up in one of your ranked games, in later seasons you will be able to say, I played Samira on release, and she was even more stupid than she is now. Thanks for watching. You can check out other videos I've made about other champions, and you can subscribe to see more in-depth videos about League. Hit the notification button to see when new updates will be coming. You can also check out my YouTube Communities tab to look for polls and updates to future content. You can follow me on Twitter and Discord for more updates as well. Like, share, subscribe, and that's it. Bye!